Okay, so just going to start off a little bit more rough and ready on this video. It's just meant to show you some of the questions we get asked a lot of the time. This is interesting. I've had a G5 bullet up on here. I want to change it for the new G5-PTZ. So I'm interested in my cable length, but I'm also interested about how maybe I can fit this directly to the wall, because the PTZ comes with this fitment here, which at the moment looks fairly similar width to the screw holes that are here for the normal bullet cameras as well. So that's what I want to just have a little look at and see how close we can get to that to be able to take it out. And I'll have to work out with my little bit of cable that's coming through here is actually going to be the right length, because obviously we now actually have to go through the back of the device, through the top and to the camera, but it might do. So again, I'm still fairly optimistic that the holes here may match up, which would make this mounting super easy. So let's get this base off and then we'll have a look from there. Okay, so I've been able to put the screws in the exact same holes that my G4 and G5 bullet base had. And the first time I tried to do this, I actually tried to catch the camera up here with the cable all the way through in place. I've actually realized that that's not the design. The design is to leave the Ethernet cable here and tidy up in a minute. And so what we actually need to do is we actually need to bring the camera up. Let me just try and see if I can pop down what I've got in my hands here and be able to do this in one go. So we need to be able to bring the camera up. You'll actually find on the outside of the camera is this black lining up hole that you can see, and you can see that there on the unit itself. Bring that up, and now it's actually locked into place. Once it's locked into place, let me come up the ladder a little bit higher. You can see that there's a little hole there on the right hand side of the imagery here that you can probably see where my finger is, probably somewhere just down here. Down here. That's going to lock it so that it's going to stop us having the issue of essentially this being able to undo, because you can see that it actually does move here. So I'm just going to actually lock that in place. Don't know whether I can do it one-handedly. Let's just see if we can get the screw in the hole to start with. All right, so the screw's in the hole there, and we should now just be able to do that up. All right, that's nicely done up. That's going to stop our device now going backwards and forwards. And so now we can actually, you can see that the Ethernet port is it's set in place there. So we should now just be able to connect up our Ethernet port, which is done there. And I'm hoping probably in a minute, if the camera, there you go, see the camera's actually now got PoE power. This is a PoE plus camera. So I've got PoE power already to that cable, and that's starting itself up and going through its wake up sequences, as you can see. So what we need to do now is we need to basically get our plastic bung back in place to cover all of that. I am slightly worried about that height there. I think it will get pushed down. We then have one last piece here, which is the cover for all of this. So this is going to go onto the top of the unit like this, be pushed down and clipped into place, and it too has a hole on the top. So we can probably just put our last screw, securing screw in there, and then I can actually show you this unit at least in place and done. While I'm doing that, you'll actually see how close the bracket is. It's a nice snug fit. There's nothing wasted on the size of getting that to the side of the wall that you've mounted it on. So we're just getting that safety screw in. Now these are probably the only ingress points for water, so if this was probably a long-term install, I might consider maybe putting a little bit of silicone sealant on that screw when we put it in, but that'll be up to your own choice. Right, that's nice and tight in. All right, so you can see the camera has set itself round here. That's because we have had this on a test rig already, and it's actually, as a result, set itself to a home, but I'll talk about the home view as an option where you can move it back to by default. But there we go. This camera is now actually setting on auto tracking, which I'll show you a little bit more as we go on, but you can actually see that it followed me round to that point. I went out of the view then, and it's now gone back to its home view. But I'll show you a little bit more about the tracking and everything else afterwards. But hopefully that gives you an idea of what the G5-PTZ mounted on the outside looks like. And we'll do a little bit more on the video on the computer now. Okay, so in this bit of a raw go at this again, I just want to show you some of the bits that we do in this. And so obviously we've mounted that camera up on the wall. And I've gone into Unifi Protect, so you'll have this running. Maybe you might have this on a UCG Max, or you might have this on a UMVR or a Cloud Key. Whatever it is, you need to log into the management of this. The camera, you then adopt it. That's a fairly simple process, which I'm not really going through. This is more about the features of what we've seen in this device itself. So I'm just going to show you a couple of bits that I like to set up on this, and some of the features of this specifically, because this is the G5-PTZ, and we've not really seen one of these at this price point. And so it's a good idea for us to be able to see what's actually going on here. So a few things that I just like to set up on here to start with. So we have something called color night vision. You'll see this from many other vendors at the moment. The color night vision is about turning on a spotlight, and that spotlight will then give us a view, because it's lit everything up, will give us a view in light, obviously, and actually then we'll be able to see everything in color. So it's giving us another perspective on this. We haven't really seen this on many of these other than the enhancer add-on that we've seen in something like the AI Pro or the G5 Pro. There was the enhancers that could be added to it. So I've turned that on, and you do have options then. How long do you want movement to happen for before you turn the turns off spotlight after no motion for how long? 5 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever it is. So I'm going to leave it at the standard of 5 seconds. You've got the option to turn the status light off, the little light that sits on the bottom of the camera. I'm going to leave that on. We've got all of these bits and pieces. What do you want to set in night vision? You can change some of the control over this. For this test of this, I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm leaving the IR filter and IR on, and microphone turned on as it is. So then we have something called home view. So home view, really, obviously, if I mounted this camera, you might not be able to mount this camera exactly flat or in the eye angle that you want it to be. But obviously, because this is a pan and tilt and zoom, I'm just using the cursor keys on the keyboard. On the app, you can use your finger to move it around. Obviously, I can move my camera around to a position of where actually, generally I want it. And so we have something in most vendors called a home or a home preset, or it's called home view in here. So really what I want to do is I want to set this up to be the image that I actually want to have in place, which is probably something like that. So as capturing as much as I want to the area that I've mounted the camera. And when that's actually set in that position that I want it to be, then in using home view, and I can choose edit, I can actually now choose save in this position. And so if I was to now, for instance, have some tracking happen or whatever go on, once that tracking's finished, so I can do this on the keyboard and simulate this. So let's bring this all the way around so it's looking at the wall. If I hit R, it's going to actually return back to my home view. This is really helpful because obviously it means that this is my view once it's done tracking, because this will auto tracker, then it allows me to now move back to what I want to after that, and it comes back to exactly the same spot of what was going on. All right, so let's just have a little look on here for the zoom that obviously we've got on this camera that we can do. In this instance, I'm just using the I and the O keys, so it's only a 2x optical zoom. But obviously it is actually fairly effective. That's full time in. If I use the arrows up at that distance of about 20 meters, we're still being able to sorry, it gets a little bit excited. There you go. You're still being able to make out what's going on in there. If I come down to auto on here, by default it's probably not necessarily set. There we go. We move this up to high quality. All right, now we've got a pretty good image at that point in time. Obviously, or I can just bring the image back out again. So you've got the option there to go to high quality as well. So again, if I hit my R on my keyboard, I'm going to return that back to where it is. So that's the start of my bits that I like for the settings. Then really we're going to be talking about the recording mode. So as you can see, we've got lots of by standard details up here. I'm probably not interested in my bitrate showing. I don't really want the logo showing, but I'm happy with the camera and name. I'm probably going to change the name on this. So let me put this to front right PTZ and apply that. All right, so we now got that a little bit neater up to how I want that to be. So like with all the rest of the Ubiquiti cameras, we've got options here to edit motion zones. So obviously we can script out areas that we don't want, or we want motion to be configured with inside. Obviously it's a PTZ, so it is a little bit limited to what it can see at this moment in time. So if you were to scroll it to the left and do this, if we were to scroll this round to the left or whatever and then edit those zones, we're going to get a slightly different image cut out as well. So you do have to sort of bear in mind it's more what it's actually facing at that's where it's going to stick. Smart zones, again, do you want areas that it just wants to monitor those bits in? For smart detections, maybe you just want, you had this pointing at specific areas and wanted just to check for the animal in that area or a vehicle or something else like that. But these are general across all of the cameras that you've got. This is a 2K camera, so obviously it is recording in 4 megapixels, roughly 4 megapixels. You can drop it down to 1080p there if you want to. And then you have obviously some options along here for everything else that's going on for audio detections and seconds before AI. So we can enable what other AI do we want. We've got animal, people, person. Animal, person, vehicle. All right, and then it's obviously going to look at those, and that's what's going to trigger our motion and everything else that's going on at that point in time. And then when to record. All right, we can choose that. Well, we've got it on events only, and then you've got some control over those bits as well. So when we go a little bit in deeper in this, we can now go into our image tuning. The screen's gone full screen, quite a large screen, so we'll just leave what we've got recording on this side here, which again is really most of what we've had in here, but you can change your shutter speeds and things to just improve it and have full control over the brightness and everything if it's very definite in your area that you need to get something like that. Presets. Presets, again, this is going to take me to full screen, but the idea of presets here is that I could move the camera around, and I think maybe we'll see this. I haven't found it here at the moment, but a lot of other vendors do what's called a patrol. All right, so I'm going to save this preset, for instance, and then we can maybe come back to another one, which might be this view here, if you like, and you can add another preset. And so what happens as you go along is that these have different values that are saved in them, and then I can choose I want this preset, and the camera will go straight back to that, and then the camera will go straight back to that, for instance. So that's what a preset is. Maybe we'll see some patrol options in due course. What are patrol options? That ability for you to say, I'd like you to go here, hover here for 5 seconds, then move to the next, hover here for 10 seconds, then move to the next and hover again. Those are sort of some of the other features I'm sure that we'll see come in due course, but aren't here right now that I've been able to find. Person auto tracking, that's an option that gets turned on, and then it should track the person from there. There we go. So it's going to return back, and it should now be sitting at person auto tracking. So I haven't done too much with that. You saw it initially when I put the camera up that it would actually start to track with me, and you can set this into this person. It doesn't seem to sort of have a yes or no or stay on when you click it. So I presume that when that's on, that's sitting there and on. But we'll have a look again in a moment. You can turn mouse control on if you prefer that to be running there. Shortcuts again are just some other options that I've not totally worked out what they actually do on here, because it doesn't seem to take you on this camera to anywhere else. Let's just have a little look what it's going to give me here. No, that's just the zooming in. Adjust autofocus. Okay, so we get a little bit of feature coming up. Oh, okay, we've got 100%, so we can adjust autofocus there. So if autofocus did that, what happens when person tracking comes on here? I was just wondering whether we can match something in the screen out. No, so we've got zoom. All right, we've got zoom down there as well as an option if you want to be able to manually do it down there. But we have got actual person tracking running, so we will actually do a little test to check that that actually works. Obviously a snapshot, quite useful thing, and image tuning that we said went to full screen that did that. So look, this is a rough and raw. It's not meant to give you a this is how everything perfectly works, and you've figured it all out, but you want to see in here. So we've got detection highlight, so we can actually tell it to highlight what it's seen in the recording. So that's pretty good. Autofocus we don't need to adjust. Let's come back to here and let's just see. There we go. It's really faint to see, but can you see it's actually got that very slight background color change to it? If I click it again, it's gone away. So this is a highlighted one now. So that actually shows that it's ready to go, and it should do some person tracking. So we will do a little bit. I'll wander out there a little bit in a moment and see if I can get it to track me. So that's what we've seen. We haven't found that this will auto zoom in on somebody that we've seen at the moment. We will record some footage and see what happens with that. But hopefully that gives you an idea of what I've found so far, how I've mounted the camera, the features that I've found, the quality of the image, and some of the basic settings around here of being able to manage it. Okay, so just want to show you a couple of things just leading up to the recording. I found this a little bit temperamental, how it saves. If you click it, you can see it's just got very slight border around the outside of it. That needs to be clicked, or needs to be showing for the tracking to work. I also found here that this often disappeared person and vehicle at the moment. That's the only ones that I want set going. So that seems to be my main issue that I had in getting this working properly. If we go back to some playback now, and I did a couple of tests with this, is actually quite interesting. That I was actually surprised. This is actually doing a zoom as well, which is pretty cool, which I wasn't expecting it to do. I thought the product wasn't necessarily mature enough to do that. So let me just show you here, hopefully, if I can get this to the right spot. All right, no, I've gone past it. All right, let's just see if we can get this to start playing. Here we go. There we go. It's probably good enough. Hang on a minute. A bit sensitive to get the playback the way that I want it to be able to show you. Here we go. So you can see that I'm walking down the side now. I now start walking towards the camera. You can actually see it's identified me as a person, and it has done a 2x optical zoom in on me, which I think is pretty good. I'm walking pretty fast. It's obviously its tracking isn't quite there yet because it lost my face. It could figure out I was just there as I walked down to the side of the house. But it then picked my head back up as I came back round again. So I think there's some maturity coming in this, but actually, in fact, it was pretty good once it got going. It was just that I walked straight at it and then down to the side. But that is effectiveness. Hopefully that shows you how well it can actually work as a camera. And obviously once it's done the tracking, it returns back to its home view and takes its position. So let's just do a repeat of this at night time. I don't know whether I can just bring that back slightly. You can see that I walked again towards the camera. Here we go. It's got a good IR diffusion. You can see that it detected me and actually turned on the light, which now brought everything into full color. And then again, obviously the tracking kicks in at that point in time. The light turned off pretty quickly afterwards, as you can see, and then you can see me carry on to wander round. I probably would have left the light on. You see the light came back on, and then it followed round to track me again after that. So that was one of the settings we did earlier, and actually be able to time that out. You can see maybe some of the reflection of the wall, but obviously it did zoom in then again on me to follow it around. So we can probably just check. Yeah, we're on high quality. So it's pretty good. It's doing what it needs to do. It's moving into a fairly dark area over there where the light won't probably reach far enough. And then once it comes to the end of what it's doing, obviously it returns back to its full tracking position. And you can see things happening there with vehicles and other bits and pieces as well, and see what you generally get as a feel of pictures and everything. So hopefully you found that useful. It's a good idea of seeing how this camera operates, how the light comes on, how it tracks, how it works at night time. Head on over to our YouTube channel. We've got plenty more videos. This one's been more of a rough and ready, throw it together so you can see and answer some of the questions that people have been asking even. But hopefully you can see some of the other ones that we've got on how-to guides. If you've never run Unifi Protect, then there's some great ones there on what do I need to use Unifi Protect and things like that. So hopefully you can subscribe and stay up to date.